What is up, friends? I'm on here after class today to make a quick video, showing you 3 options you have for meaningfully strengthening your glutes, your backside, your posterior chain, if you've heard of it, which is your back, your hips, and the entire back of your legs, including all the way down to the bottom surface of your foot. These, for me, or a version of one of the 3 I'm going to show you today, which will hopefully give you enough variety that there'll be something in here you can begin with, is, for me, completely non-negotiable. And if you know me, I've said before, I only preach what I practice. I do a version of a glute bridge, a squat, a deadlift, all manner of exercises to strengthen my posterior chain, my back, my glutes, my full leg, just like I explained, because it has made a bigger difference in my overall movement quality, strength, endurance, etc. It's been a bigger difference than anything else that I've, had as an intervention in my movement history. Okay, short foot is a close second, but short foot without squats, why? Okay, my foot cannot be expected, my little foot at the bottom of the totem cannot be expected to overcome deficiency of strength of much bigger muscles that are supposed to be collaborating with it. The foot is signaling what these muscles are supposed to do, right? The foot is the first responder that calls in backup. If no backup ever arrives, if these muscles don't cue and fire the way they're supposed to, if they are not in absolute terms strong enough for the task that you ask of your body on a daily basis, one of which is probably just walking well, then these are for you. And I really do mean this is for everybody. And if I'm coming at this video with a little bit of tough love, it's because I'm noticing in my own life, I'm having to convince some people of just how important these are. If you're looking for this video and you found this video, then hopefully you're like, no, I want this. And thank you, because I want to get it to you so that it really makes a meaningful impact in your life. If you are on the fence about this importance, I want you to give it like a 3-week trial or a 1-month trial, dedicatedly pushing yourself to do any of the versions. I'm going to show you 3 versions of a glute strengthening, hip strengthening, stabilizing, balance enhancing, posterior chain activating exercise. This is a big deal, people. This is not a little, like a bicep curl. Being like, you could live without it. No, this your body can't live without. Okay? So if you're someone who's looking for this, I hope that this is a helpful resource. If you're someone who's on the fence, I hope this convinces you to do a 3-week trial, go at it hard, give me some muscular burn. I don't mean do 2, I mean do 10, do 20, do 30, push yourself every day so that your body adapts. Your body is smart. If you stimulate it to adapt, it will. If you don't stimulate it to adapt, it won't. It's smart, okay? So here's your 3 options. Let's talk about our game plan. I have a chair, I have a mat, and I got my 2 feet, okay? So the most functional, basic human movement that we're going to talk about, this is a squat. A squat is a technical fitness term at this point, but really it is bending, flexing at my ankle, my knee, and my hip to such a degree that I lower and lift my body. I'm sitting on the ground because I have camera angles to deal with, right? But otherwise, you don't need to be sitting. You can be standing to do this. So your squat is a variation of this. People will tell you, the interweb will tell you, that there's a right way to do it. There's lots of right ways to do it, is the honest truth. And among the right ways are the versions that feel good to you. Where do you feel strong? Where do you feel balanced? Where do you feel like you could hang out? Where do you feel like your muscles are engaging? And that might be burning, right? Some muscles might have to give you some burn. It's not totally comfortable to hang out here in this deep squat. My quads are burning. My adductors are active, right? It's not, it looks easy, but it's not. There's muscular work going on. So feeling muscular work, we're cool with muscular work. We don't want joint pain. We certainly don't want any nerve pain in our back or stress. And we don't want muscles that aren't our active movers here to be taking up the slack. So here's what I mean. If you're feeling this, like you're feeling a great deal of strain in your back versus burn in your legs, then that's something you need to make adjustments in. But you're going to make those adjustments. You're not going to quit, okay? Because just because you haven't learned how to do this movement with your legs and not with your back doesn't mean you don't have to learn, right? It's just when. So start now. Okay, so we're trying to get a squat. If I cannot do a squat, and I will detail a squat another day, if I cannot do a meaningful squat with a good hip hinge, right? I want to send my butt back. There's many of us get stuck here, and I want to get you to some variation of a nice, deep, loaded hip hinge, because what we're training in the variation of the squat that I'm working with in the other exercise is a glute activating variation, as opposed to more of a knee dominant variation, which you'll see lots of. They even call them things like curtsy squats and pistol squats and sissy squats, or is another term for that. Okay. If you cannot do a traditional air squat, you're going to use a chair, and there's zero shame in my content, okay? So there's no shame in using a chair. We all should start somewhere. You can also bolster your chair. So you're going to bolster, or you're going to select a piece of furniture that allows you to lower and lift your body with control. Even the smallest micro fall into your chair, meaning even the smallest oops is a loss of control, and I want you to practice to have full control. So I have bolstered with people I've worked with. I've had multiple pads. I don't love pillows because they're slippery, okay? So if this is a physical therapy pad for like balance work. It has a nice sticky rubbery texture. You can stack a couple of these up, right? So that you find the height that you can lower your body. You could stop at any moment. You could stop and back up. You could stop and retract at any moment. And you're going to lower, and you're going to come up. We could talk about our form, but I just want to get through your option of the exercise. This is the big picture view. I will post other videos breaking these down. Let's look at two other options. The two I've shown, the chair squat and the air squat, are tri-joint actions, okay? Hip, knee, ankle are all involved. Let's perhaps take at least one of those joints out of the equation to simplify the movement for you if the tri-joint action is causing you some trouble. If you want to figure out, why is this so challenging for me? Do I have a limitation in my range of motion? Is it a limitation of strength? Have I not practiced changing my balance from my heels to my toes? What's making this so hard? Let me give you two options that you can do on the floor to bolster up the muscular activation, so that then you can maybe explore the standing versions more safely and with more confidence. So here is one version. I could actually show you on this pad. And then put me a little higher up. You can see the floor. You can see the pad, can you? Oh gosh, now I'm blocking my own view. Okay, here we go. Okay. So if you're able to kneel, I recognize that kneeling is not necessarily comfortable for everybody, okay? And by the way, if you're going to kneel, this might be too soft, like maybe a more dense pad that is protective of your knees, but that you're not going to sink into might be more optimal. So I changed that because I actually would prefer, if you're going to do this, to be on something that's a little bit more firm, but that is enough cushion that you're not hurting your knees. If you are able to come into this deep knee flexion, which by the way is something to do, if you can do this comfortably and you're not getting any pain, do it. Keep doing it, because this is actually really a decompressive position for your knee. This is not inherently bad for your knee unless you're already feeling pain there because of some alignment issue that has happened, some wearing away of connective tissue perhaps that's sensitizing your knee. There could be a reason that you're feeling pain here, but it should not be normal to feel pain here, and preserve this range of motion if you can, okay? For the mobility and the stretch of the muscles, etc. Now, when I did this squat from the chair, my feet were on the ground, and I was sitting back into the chair, and I was coming up, right? Back into the chair and coming up. Back into the chair, coming up. If you cut me off at the knees, then I'm doing that same action here. Hips are back, hips are up. All right? Adjust your stance or your knee position so that you have enough, your pelvis is comfortable, right, to come up and swivel on your legs and reach back. Back is flat, hip is hinging, forward and back. I am not locking out in a really aggressive squeeze at the top. You could, but if you have sensitive hips, I don't want you to do that, because really, while there is some, like if you're lifting a heavy weight or you're pressing something over your head, that lockout of the glutes might be good for you to stabilize. If you have hip sensitivity, you don't necessarily want to be grinding the head of your femur forward in your hip socket that hard. So just know that's not a requirement. What the requirement is, getting up using your butt muscles, not getting up prying you with your thighs. Don't pry with your thighs, okay? Squeeze with your glutes. So my hips go back, they stay back, they're squeezing to hinge here. The fulcrum is at the hip where your femur attaches to your pelvis. And you want to engage your glutes and then translate that engagement to the chair air squat, or the air squat, right? The chair or the air squat. So again, back, stays back, bring it under you. Stays back, bring it under you. Not bend the knees. And this is actually very revealing in the chair if you have this tendency, because you'll notice if you go to sit in your chair and you're going to do your squat, you'll tuck your knees, right? The tendency will be for you to, rather than have those feet out and then bring the pelvis over the feet, you might have a tendency to drag your feet in. I think you can see my feet. You might have a tendency to pull your feet in, put them on the floor, lean forward, and then straighten your legs. Do you see that? See, my butt is back there, and then I just stand. I'm using the front of my legs. I'm not using the back of my legs. And that's a dangerous place to be, because I cannot get very low to the ground using those muscles. These muscles here, most people cannot. Some athletes have really trained this. People who work out at a gym have really trained to get low down in the front of their leg, but that is not optimal, okay? You want, and if you, that is something that's going to be challenging for you. If you go to bend your knees and you are just using the front of your body and you can't get your hips back, then you go here and then you tip, especially if you want to lower your spine to the ground. This is a very precarious place. I think you can see my heels are off the ground, and I'm not able to use my butt muscles or my entire back line of the body at all. Whereas if I'm able to use the back line of my body, I can meaningfully lower myself with the tri-joint action. Ankle, knee, hip, like an accordion. They straighten me from the floor, they lower me to the floor. Okay? If I get stuck in just the knees and the all-important hip joint is not particularly active for me, and think about how many muscles we have stabilizing our balance there. Our glutes, our glute medius, like our entire glute complex, our hamstrings attached there, etc. Right? There's all this part of our body. It's the hub of the wheel for a reason. Has to be involved. Don't get stuck leaning here. Okay? Don't get stuck leaning here. All right. So there's enough of a demonstration of that. The third option, especially if kneeling is uncomfortable for you, although I highly recommend doing all of these, and I will branch out and make a video with some more, I don't want to call them advanced exercise, but maybe more interesting exercises to vary this up. But like I said, this is non-negotiable. This is the protein on your plate. It's the vegetables on your plate. This is your, like, the center of your physical strength training meal. If you do one thing, do one of these. Okay, glute bridges. So, like the seated position or the kneeling position, I have my mic pack on. I don't even have a mic on. I tell you guys, it's been a day. That's why I want to get through this video, because I really want you to have this info. So if you are lying in bed even, okay? I don't love in bed because the mattress is probably quite squishy, which is going to add a stability element. And if you're not quite ready to do this with a stability element, that's not my favorite option. But if that's what you're doing, or getting down to the floor is not safe for you, or you don't have something you can comfortably lie on, in your bed is better than nothing. 100% is better than nothing. And if you are doing this in your bed, so let me do two versions. I'm sorry that I don't have a squishy surface to show you down here, but I'm going to give you a little bit more feedback for if you're doing this on your bed, say first thing in the morning. If you have back pain, if you have hip pain, activating these muscles first thing in the morning. I've heard of physical therapists prescribing that because it's a great way to wake up the muscles that are going to stabilize your hips and back and spine and feet. So it's a great time to do this if you can, as long as you're not hurting yourself in your bed. So here's what I would mean. If your bed is really squishy and you don't have the core control to lift and lower your back, right, or to lift and lower your hips without the wobbly factor of the bed causing you, for example, nerve pain or something in your spine because you're actually on a micro level unstable. And I'm sorry if the mic is not picking me up very well here. Hopefully it is. If that is happening for you, I would like you to just lie in bed and squeeze the muscles we're about to talk about. Squeeze the muscles, but not necessarily lift. All right? If lifting is then causing any pain in your joints. But if you can lift and hold, notwithstanding the wobble factor of the bed, and in fact, if you're wobbling a lot, that's going to tell you that you might have an asymmetry of strength, like you automatically are pushing down harder into the right leg versus the left, and that means an entire side of your body is kind of freeloading on the strong side. That will lead to injury. That will lead to compensation and a subpar movement, which means subpar joint health for you, okay? So strength and joint health. So let's also use that. If you go to do this in bed and you're a wobbly mess, try to figure out, and that would be me, okay, when I first started doing this. I'm not saying that in a harsh way, but if you're really wobbly, then notice that. Make the movement smaller. Make it more vicious. I always say make it small, surgical, precise, and intense before you make it big, okay? Own it first. So here's the exercise of glute bridges, no matter what surface you're doing them on. I just wanted to give that caveat because if this is the only option you can do because you are not someone who can't get down to the ground, I want you to have those safety pieces in mind. Okay, so our glute bridge. There are lots of ways to do a hip thrust or glute bridge exercise. I am showing you what I think of as the most, come up to talk to you now, the most vanilla posterior chain and spine strengthening. So spine stabilizing, spine in mind, health oriented version of this. You will see people doing like, hip thrusts with their back up elevated and a bar or a weight plate across their pelvis and things like that. That's great. That's more like for hypertrophy. They want to build muscle size. They want to build explosivity. That is all great. I am not knocking it. But first things first, you do not need a weight. You do not need anything but your own body weight to make this meaningfully strengthening. And you're going to go for reps, and you are going to squeeze the indicated muscles for some burn. Okay? So, and to be clear, I want you to see me lying on the ground, right, picture it, it's very much the same as getting up and down from the ground, but my foot is oriented this way. My foot is not on the ground, it's pointed down. But it's the same action of hip coming up under me, right? Hip coming up under me if this is the floor. Each of these exercises is trying to get at the same muscle system, different orientation to gravity, different challenge for your body, and different level of accessibility. I do all of them, and if you can do all of them, do. Okay, down on the ground. Find your lumbar curve, find your natural, neutral posture, the strongest posture you would have if you're standing up very straight. Your chin is tucked. Your feet are a comfortable width from each other and a comfortable distance from your hips. Your spine is neutral. Your chin, like I said, is tucked. Your arms are relaxing out. And your upper back is looking for the mat. It's nice and comfortable. Like I said, you have lumbar curve. You are not tucking your pelvis. Make sure you're not tucking your pelvis, and we're going to talk a little further about this. As you go to engage your body to lift your hips, I want you to squeeze your glutes before you actually initiate the hover. Squeeze your glutes and press your feet through the floor. Activate them into the ground. Activate into the ground. Engage your glutes without adjusting your pelvis. You might want to put your hands on your abs, okay? Pinky on the pelvis, thumb on the rib cage. Brace. See my video on abdominal bracing and intra-abdominal pressure to know how to do this breathing. It's very important. Brace. Find that neutral curve, and as you squeeze your glutes and legs, drive your legs down, you're noticing your pelvis did not change. And you can just hover here for a minute and push solidly into the ground. Imagine someone is going to step on your belly and you are avoiding being pressed down. You're going to push, 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 and just hold and squeeze and radiate intensity, glutes to thighs. It looks like nothing. It should feel like some serious firepower and work. Tons of variations you can do from here. You can push down harder into the balls of the feet and the toes. Mine are hanging off the mat in this instance. That's not ideal. I want my toes to get feedback from the surface. So nice flat surface if you can. My arches are lifted. I'm engaging some short foot. What can I do? I can march in my head. I can press harder into one leg, harder into the other, with nothing changing at my back and spine. I'm staying in my neutral spine. I'm not letting this happen. Can you activate the left leg and the right leg? Or when you go to march, do you automatically swivel? Do you get no meaningfully engaged muscle? Like, is your brain not able to command your hamstring and glute to light up, or your calf, right? Anything you're feeling on that backside to light up? Use your brain, explore from this nice safe distance, okay? From there, you can lift higher, but again, not changing the curvature of your spine. If you go up high enough, eventually your pelvis is going to be affected. It's going to run out of range of motion. But in this more conservative range, I want you to preserve the integrity of your low back, because that has to do with why we're doing this exercise. All right, so if you go up, more options. You can squeeze your feet towards your butt. You really get the hamstrings a little more. You can actually make this a single leg exercise. You can do all kinds. You can actually go for reps, or you can just go and hold. Okay, there's just a bunch of content. Let me show you what happens if you tuck your butt, okay? If you are someone who, when you squeeze your glutes with your brain, okay, you activate your glutes with your brain, or you push down and your glutes are encouraged in that way to fire, along with your hamstrings. If you do that and you tuck your pelvis, you are someone whom I was speaking of earlier is going to be stuck in the front line of your body. That's telling you that you're not able to activate your glutes in a range of motion other than tuck and press. Okay, you are that same person who's stuck getting up and down from a chair by pulling the feet in and rocking forward and straightening your legs. And your glutes will be asleep for the rest of your life, and it's going to become an issue, either a fall risk or hip pain or knee pain or foot pain or spine pain. It could really, it's the hub of the wheel. It affects everything. All right, guys, this has been kind of a racehorse type of video. I hope that you're enjoying my intensity this morning. I hope this video is useful. I can already think of like 20 different things I would have done differently. I hope the audio is okay, but I'm going to go ahead and post this because I'm feeling really strongly about this topic today. And I've wanted to make it for a long time for the people who take my classes, because we don't do glute bridges or the kneeling squats every day. We almost always do some version of a squat, because like I said, I preach what I practice, and I want to give the participants in my class a chance to carve out that time to practice their squats, to strengthen their glutes, to strengthen their hip complex for life. Talk soon.